thank you so much for being here today. We're super excited to get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Hi. Yes, so I'm Alex Clark. I am a creative director by day for a very large retail company, but at night and on the weekends and any spare time that I have, I illustrate children's books, comics, graphic novels, you name it. A little bit of a jack of all trades.
Love that.
Yeah.
What techniques and resources do you use when you're designing?
So going to art school years ago, you kind of learn what works for you, what works best, but at the same time, you want to play, you want to experiment. So I'm a little bit all over the place. For a couple of the books that I've done in the past, I started out with, pencil and then went into digital colors. This last one that we did with Cora and the Moon, I actually made it really hard on myself and decided, you know what, let's watercolor. Like, let's get crazy and like let's fully paint this thing, as opposed to the previous one, which was pretty much ink on Bristol board and then I digitally colored it all. So this one's got a little bit a special soft spot in my heart for being fully painted, but it was definitely a labor of love.
Love that. Is that one of the books that you co-authored?
So I don't know if I would say co-authored. It was definitely authored by my friend, good friend, dear friend, Casey Bowers, Cora and the Moon. We've known each other for going on by about 10 years now. So he wrote it and I illustrated it.
Love that. And
Yeah.
I do know that you said you actually did co-author a few books of your own.
Yes. So I'm working on a graphic novel right now that I'm writing and illustrating. Again, that's another labor of love. One of those stories that you've had in your head for the better part of 15 years, and you actually go back and look at sketches from like 2008 and realize, oh my, that was terrible. And then this is brand new information. I'm working on a local comic strip for a small kind of news outlet here in Ohio. So yeah, so I write, I draw, a little bit of everything.
I love that.
Yeah.
How do you get inspired to produce the piece of artwork for the covers or the comics?
Well, it depends on the project. So having a graphic design background, it's interesting. So I think my process is different than a lot of people. But still, the artistic process is you find inspiration kind of wherever. When I'm working on children's books, I definitely look at the manuscript and I try to picture in my head. You want to, think of what a child would want to see, what would really be evocative to produce images in their head and get their dreams going and whatever. So when Casey wrote this last book, obviously parts of the book were going into space. We're, flying on a cloud. We're meeting friends on the moon. So, it's just you get inspired by what you think somebody might want to see. But at the same time, when I'm working on my own stuff, I'm inspired by daily life. The comic strip I'm working on actually is hilarious. It's supposed to be about the weirdness that is Central Ohio. So just going to the store and seeing people be people. I love people watching. People probably think I'm weird because I'll go to parks and other places and just people watch and watch the weirdness that they do and kind of the weird idiosyncrasies of the human, aspect. But so I don't know. I'm inspired by a lot of things. I'm doing really cute little girls flying through space, and then I've actually done some horror comics where people have had their heads ripped off. So I'm, you name it, I kind of find inspiration wherever I see it.
I love that. Do you have a favorite medium that you use? Computer, pen and paper, pencil paper, painting?
I I think in a perfect world, if I could, I would probably hand draw or hand paint everything. But the world that we live in, and with the thousand projects that I either have going on or I'd like to get to, I think the computer is the new way to get to print or market faster. If I'm going to be The other thing you have to realize is that nowadays a lot of people are doing some amazing textures and amazing painting techniques in digital. I think that people love texture. They love to see, paint brush strokes and everything else. And you can achieve those now in digital more than you ever could before. There are people out there who literally make brushes for digital. So I think I like pen to paper. I'm actually like 90% blind in one eye. So I like to put the pen to paper because I actually have zero depth perception, and it just feels tactile, and I love it. So I personally love hand painting, hand drawing, marker, watercolor pencils, you name it. I'm all over the place, but digital is an easier way to color it. I have over here, I have one of those like second monitors, but it's actually like an actual tablet. So I can draw on um, this tablet. So yeah, again, I'm a little all over the place. It depends on the project and the aesthetic that I think would really kind of bring that to life.
I love that. How long have you been illustrating now?
Oh my gosh. My parents will tell you okay. So my parents are my biggest fans. And they'll probably tell you I've been drawing since day one. I remember when I was younger, of course, I come from a nerdy family, lots of Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings kind of people. They were telling me that when I was 4 or 5 years old, I was drawing Star Wars characters. And then they just nurtured that love of drawing. I did a huge project. We were talking about medieval culture and knights and things like that in third grade. And they actually had, because I was so ADD, that they actually told me, why don't you go over here and draw a mural for the class on knights and horses and things like that. So I've never not been drawing since I can remember. But it was nice to have parents who really nurtured that and said, you know what, I think you could probably go into, go to art school and make a career out of this.
I love that. What do you need in your space to help you stay focused on the project, or is there something that you use if you ever come up against a creative block?
Ooh, music. 100%. I work better with music on. I don't even hear the music, but when I turn music on, I feel the rhythm, I feel the beat, and I'm in a different place. So I think music is big for me. I've always been musical. My parents are actually music teachers, so my parents are in the arts, so they've always been really supportive of that. But it's just music. That's the way I get into it. Um, and then I definitely need to be off by myself. If I'm around other people, I do have a tendency to find hard to focus. So I come down to my studio and crank up some music, and off I go.
That's so amazing. Do you have a favorite snack or drink that you have all the time when you're working?
I mean, okay, so I'm an avid coffee drinker. Like I am literally a pot of coffee by myself a day. I'm still drinking coffee. It's 8:30 at night. That's kind of my go-to. It keeps me going, keeps me sane. But that's definitely snacks. I don't really know. I'm kind of, I'm not really a snacky guy. Salty, sweet, I don't really care. But if I got a cup of coffee in my hand, then I'm good to go.
That coffee is such a good thing to have.
It's wonderful. It's a magical elixir.
Yes.
Hmm.
What type of books do you and personally enjoy reading?
I uh, I'm a comic book nerd. True and true, die hard comic book nerd. I grew up on Marvel and DC. But the older you get, the more you start to look for other media. So I definitely love to. I mean, I grew up on children's books. That's the thing, is we all grew up on children's books. I grew up on Mercer Mayer and Dr. Seuss. There was a TV show years ago on PBS called Secret City, and there was this guy named Commander Mark, and he would always every day have a show where he really wanted the kids to like sit down in front of the TV and draw. And some of the drawing style that he was doing was very Dr. Seuss. So I grew up on Dr. Seuss. These days, I'm definitely more of the graphic novels, more independent. If I like something that's a little less mainstream, and then I always try to get to Barnes and Noble or any bookstores here in the Columbus area, so I can see like what's new and hot in the children's book market. It's weird because obviously they say if you want to see what's out in the market to find out like what's the style or the subject matter that's out there, you have to be 5 years or less in terms of like the newer books. But man, I really go back to those old weird ones, like Where the Wild Things Are. I love those older books.
So good.
Yeah.
So true. On the other side of that, what type of books do you personally enjoy illustrating?
I definitely do not enjoy illustrating horror murder things. I really, I want to do funny stuff. I like doing quirky, really weird, off kilter. Like when I draw Batman, I don't just draw Batman. I usually have him like with saggy underpants on, like holding like a bat, just something goofy. I like goofy, silly things. I like things that have character, have life to them. I wish that I was more expressionistic with my style. I wish that I was more loose. I've had people say that my style is very commercial, but that comes from that graphic design background of trying to hit that sweet spot of like, it's artistic, but everyone can like it and enjoy it. So I grew up on cartoons. So I always think that things should be kind of funny, things should be humorous. I'm very sarcastic, so I love things that have that little like snark to it when it comes to some of the humor. But I like to draw funny things and cute things way more than I like to draw murder. Let's put it that way.
Love that. In your portfolio, do you have an all-time favorite creation you've made?
My word. So the one that keeps coming up recently is every time people look at Cora. So when Casey was writing Cora and the Moon, one page literally just said Cora is flying over a cityscape on the back of a cloud, and it said, "Here, I'll just read it to you because so you can kind of get like because when you get a manuscript, you're like, oh, okay, you wrote these 6 words, but I have to draw it now." So it was over mountains, hills, and plains, above cars, boats, and trains. The world below became quiet and blue until it disappeared completely from view. I drew a full, I don't know, 24-inch wide cityscape with Cora flying over a city full of lights and cars and boats on a river with mountains in the background. The sun is setting. And I think it was one of those things that took me a long time, very detailed. And when people see it, that's that page turn. When you turn that page, people just go, oh, look at this. Like I've had people who've actually said, can I like buy that from you? And I'm like, no, that's mine. No, that's my baby. So that's probably the last thing that I did that was really great from a children's book perspective. And then some of the comic work I'm doing lately, I've been really impressed with it and really excited for it. So yeah.
So amazing. I love that. I love the scene and the way you described it too.
Yeah, Casey, beautiful words. Of course, he was like, "Oh, I wrote this manuscript," and I'm like, "Cool, I got to draw it for the next year and a half." So awesome, thank you.
Love that. How long do typical projects take you?
Well, because I have a very grueling full-time job, projects take me longer than I'd like. I could probably, if I did this full time, I could probably knock out a book probably every 6 months. But I would say definitely most full books are taking me about a year to a year and a half.
It's amazing.
Yeah, when you're in a house with 5 teenage boys, 3 dogs, your wife, and all the things that go along with being a parent and having people driving and jobs and school and sports. It's like cool. I might have maybe 3 to 6 hours a week to actually put towards creative endeavors.
Love that though. It's definitely it sounds like a full-time job on top of your full-time job plus your
Right.
full-time parenting job.
Yes, yeah, never a dull moment.
So true. Kids are a wonderful blessing, but
They are.
here
They
goes.
are.
What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
Oh, with reading. So you're saying like, what would I tell them to read, or what would I tell them about reading?
Either or.
Oh my word, it's really hard to say. I'm a voracious reader. I love reading. I love reading comics, novels, you name it. I love reading. I just love entertainment. I love picturing almost like a movie happening in my head. So I always want people to read. I think that kids should be reading more often and kind of experiencing that. But when it comes to what they should be reading, I don't know. It kind of depends on what your thoughts are, what's your favorite things. I think one of my favorite novelists, who also used to be a comic book writer, Brad Meltzer, he's got this really great children's book series about real people who are heroes. That was everything from, I mean, man, Abraham Lincoln to Martin Luther King to, so I think those are fantastic, but I just think everyone should read. Sometimes you have to take some time to find what really kind of resonates. We've all opened up a book and read a chapter and been like, not really feeling this, but you still have to try again and find something that really kind of works for you.
On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book from, could you do both perspectives, the author perspective and the illustrator perspective?
Oh yeah. My method for when I write is to, you come up with a story. So what I'm writing right now for the graphic novel, I literally plan this graphic novel to be a 300-page graphic novel. So I'm writing, starting with the concept, and then what I'm doing is writing an outline. So I'm really trying to get into what, because you don't want to write yourself into a hole. So you really need to find out where you're going to go and how you're going to end this thing. But from a manuscript perspective, I actually have 2 books that I'm starting to noodle on. And so right now I'm at that wonderful stage where it's a concept, but I haven't actually started to write it yet. So I want to do an alphabet book with weird foods, like basically would a crocodile eat a cucumber, and then go through like the ABCs of like would a aardvark eat an avocado, things like that. So I'm in the early manuscript stages right now and just trying to figure out, do I want it to rhyme? Do I not? You don't want to put too many evocative words into your manuscript because that's what the pictures are for. So I think you need to keep it simple, keep a nice pace. You really want to make sure that the reader feels like they're a part of the story and they're discovering along the way. So I don't know. I'm new to the writing game. The problem is I have about 14 new ideas in my head, but I am learning as I go, and I do work with a lot of copywriters, so I'm getting a lot of tips and tricks from them along the way. So yeah.
What's one thing people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Oh my word. Most people actually that I work with don't even know that I do children's books or comics on the side. So that's kind of fun. Most people don't know that I was in a band in college. I'm also a huge Batman fan, but I'm pretty much an open book. But it's so funny because you meet people every day, whether it be work or something else, and they don't know a lot about you and your history. Um, yeah, I don't know. I come from a small town in Indiana, so I'm a transplant to the Central Ohio area. So I come from literally cornfields on all sides. So most people don't know that about me because like you don't seem like you'd be a hick from the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, yeah, well, I am actually. So I grew up near farms and farmland. So yeah, a lot of weird things about me. But most people, when they find out that I illustrate children's books or comics on the side, they're like, oh, really? Well, that's interesting. So
I love
yeah.
that. A great one. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
Say or add? No, I don't really think so off the top of my head. Um, Probably the biggest thing for me when we do like author visits or school visits is I always try to tell people, and this is kind of my platform. I don't want to say platform because that sounds preachy, but my platform is I want kids to draw, I want kids to create, and I don't want kids to stop. If there's anything in the world that I tell people, never stop creating, never stop drawing, always have that sense of innocence and wonder when because at a certain age, people get older and they get into basketball, they get into cars, they get into what have you, and they stop drawing. And I think that that's sad. And I think a lot of people don't realize that you can have a career in the arts and still make a wonderful living and have some really great aspects to your life. I worked for a large retailer for years doing apparel graphics. So somebody had to draw those, somebody had to design those. You work for this company, somebody had to draw that. So I think people don't realize that you can actually grow up and go to school in the arts and then get a job in the arts and have a very successful, fun adult life. So I always tell people, don't stop drawing. If you love drawing and you love creating, and whether it's writing, drawing, illustrating, don't stop. Keep going.
I love that. What is one thing that you could tell a parent to support their child who loves the arts, but they might not understand it?
Ooh, yeah, that's tricky. It's tricky because I did grow up with very supportive parents who were artists in their own right. But yeah, you see it every day. People, especially in this area, they really push sports. And I think that at the end of the day, I was in sports, but I was also in the arts. You can do both. But these days, people make their children pick one avenue. Either you're in the arts, you're in theater, you're in sports, you're in this. I think that it's nice to be well-rounded and have a little bit of like different kind of likes and loves in your life. I think just don't pressure your kids into doing what you want them to do or what you think they should do. My dad actually wanted me to be an architect. He said, well, you can draw. You should go be an architect. Guess what? Architecture's all math. I was like, no. So I went into the art program and I actually found graphic design, which he was happy about because then I could have a decent career and support myself and my family.
I love that. That's very inspirational.
Thank you.
And I know that you have co-authored a book, and I was wondering where the best place for readers to find your book, and the best place if you offer signed copies, if that's an option, and the best place to connect with you personally.
Sure, of course. So you can find me all over the socials. On Instagram, I'm Alex M. Clark 78. I'm on Twitter. It's a little bit different. It's Alex Michael C. But if you want to find our book, so Cora and the Moon is the one that we put out last year with Gen Z Publishing. They're a small indie publisher, so this is our first published book, technically. Amazon, if you want to buy it. And then if you go to Etsy and look up Cora and the Moon, we do have signed copies that we can mail out to people. And then you can also find our other book we did together called When I Grow Up. We actually self-published that through Kickstarter, but it's on Amazon and Etsy as well. So you can find us just about anywhere. And then I'm not sure there's a lot of people in the Central Ohio area, but most of our books are also found at most of the independent bookstores. We usually work with independent bookstores in the Ohio area just to, get in there, have author visits. We actually have one on Saturday. So.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so happy that we got to interview you and learn more about illustrating. So thank you again so much.
Of course, Courtney. This has been fantastic. Thank you.